My brothers and sisters, when you open your eyes in the morning, you are not just waking up to another ordinary day. You are waking up to the breath of God still flowing through your lungs, proof that He has given you another chance, another opportunity, another day to walk in His purpose. But here is the challenge many of us face. We rise out of bed with plans already in our heads, schedules already mapped out, problems already weighing us down. We think about what we have to do, where we have to go, who we have to meet, and before we even say thank you, we have already allowed the day to start running us instead of letting God guide us. If we truly want God to take over our day, we cannot just rush into it like we are in charge. We have to begin with surrender. When you wake up, the first thing you ought to do is not check your phone, not worry about yesterday, not stress about tomorrow, but simply whisper, Lord, I give this day to you. That small act of surrender can shift the entire atmosphere of your life, because when you acknowledge that the day is not yours, but His, you are placing yourself under divine order. You see, surrender doesn't mean weakness. Surrender means strength under the right authority. Too many of us carry the weight of life as if everything depends on us. We walk around burdened, exhausted, frustrated, trying to make things happen in our own power. But when you surrender your day to God, you are saying, Lord, I trust your strength more than mine. I trust your wisdom more than my understanding. I trust your will more than my plans. And that is when you move from pressure into peace. Now, let me tell you, surrender is not always easy, because we are creatures of control. We like to hold the steering wheel of our lives. We like to dictate how things will go. But here's the truth. How many times have you tried to run your day only to end it frustrated, empty, or disappointed? How many times have you thought, if only I could control this, if only I could fix that? And yet, the more you tried, the heavier it became. That is why the Lord is calling you to start your day in His presence, to say before you move, before you act, before you speak, Lord, lead me. Imagine how different your day would look if every word you spoke was shaped by His Spirit, if every step you took was guided by His wisdom, if every challenge you faced was covered by His strength. That's the power of surrender. That's the beauty of letting God take over your day. He will open doors you didn't even knock on. He will silence storms you thought would drown you. He will bring peace into places where chaos tried to settle. And sometimes it's not about the big battles. It's about the little moments, the way you talk to your children before they leave the house, the patience you show your spouse, the grace you extend to a co-worker, the discipline you practice with your thoughts. When you surrender your day to God, you begin to see His fingerprints in the smallest details, and those small moments carry the weight of His glory. But here's the secret: you have to practice it daily. Every single morning, you must choose again to surrender. You cannot live today on yesterday's surrender. Just as His mercies are new every morning, your surrender must be fresh every morning, because the challenges of today are not the challenges of yesterday. And the grace for today is waiting for you the moment you wake up and give it back to Him. So the next time you wake up, don't just rush into your list. Don't just grab your phone. Don't just carry yesterday's baggage into a brand new day. Take a moment, breathe, acknowledge the gift of life. Say, Lord, I am here because of you. My steps belong to you. My thoughts belong to you. My plans belong to you. Take over this day, and when you mean it from your heart, you will discover that you are no longer walking through the day alone. You are walking with the one who holds the day in His hands. When we talk about letting God take over your day, it's not just about starting the morning with prayer and then forgetting Him the rest of the way. No, it's about inviting God into every single task, every single moment, every single responsibility that comes across your path. Too often we separate our spiritual life from our daily life, as if God only belongs in church on Sunday morning, but He doesn't belong at the office on Monday afternoon. We pray before we eat, but we forget to pray before we make a decision that could change the direction of our lives. We call on Him when there's a crisis, but we ignore Him in the ordinary. Yet the truth is, God doesn't just want the big pieces. He wants the whole puzzle. Think about it. How many times have we said, God, I need you to fix this huge problem, but then in the smaller areas, we try to figure it out on our own. We invite him into the storm, but not into the small breeze. We want him in the courtroom, but not in the kitchen. We want him in the emergency room, but not in the classroom. But if you really want God to take over your day, you've got to let him into the little details, the moments that seem insignificant, the places where you think you've got it covered. Because sometimes it's not the big decisions that trip us up, it's the small ones. It's not the mountain that makes us stumble, but the little stone we didn't see along the way. When you dedicate your tasks to God, something shifts. Washing dishes becomes worship. Driving to work becomes an opportunity to talk to him. Sending an email becomes an act of obedience and excellence. Teaching your child homework becomes a reflection of his patience. Even the mundane becomes meaningful when you invite God into it. Because God doesn't just meet us in the sanctuary, he walks with us in the marketplace, in the break room, in the boardroom, and in the living room. And here's the thing, when you invite God into your daily tasks, he gives you insight and wisdom beyond your natural ability. He will remind you to check something you were about to overlook. He will nudge you to speak life into someone who was about to give up. He will slow you down when you're rushing toward a mistake. He will strengthen you when your body feels weak. The Spirit of God doesn't just come to shout you on Sunday. He comes to lead you on Tuesday, guide you on Wednesday, and cover you on Thursday. But we must be intentional. You can't invite God into your tasks if you're too busy to acknowledge him. That's why Scripture says, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Not some of your ways, not just the hard ways, not just the ways you can't handle. In all your ways, that means before you walk into that meeting, say, Lord, give me the words. Before you discipline your children, say, Lord, give me wisdom. Before you sign that contract, say, Lord, guide my hand. Because when you pause to acknowledge him, you open the door for him to move. Too many of us have compartmentalized God. We have told him, stay in this part of my life, but I'll handle the rest. But the moment you limit God, you limit the flow of his power. He is not interested in being a part-time guest in your life. He wants to be the full-time master of your life. And if he is truly Lord, then he has the right to step into every room of your house, every corner of your schedule, every piece of your heart. And the beauty of it is this. When you invite him in, you'll find that the stress you used to carry begins to lift, because you're no longer saying, I've got to handle this by myself. You're saying, Lord, this belongs to you. That means you don't have to be consumed with fear when you face uncertainty, because the God you invited into your day already sees what's ahead. You don't have to crumble under pressure when demands stack up, because the God who walks with you gives strength for every assignment. You don't have to be overwhelmed by decisions, because the God who lives within you whispers wisdom into your spirit. Somebody here today needs to understand inviting God into your task doesn't make you weaker, it makes you stronger. It doesn't make you slower, it makes you wiser. It doesn't make you less capable, it makes you more effective. Because when his hand is on your work, your ordinary becomes extraordinary. That's why the Bible says, whatever you do, do it as unto the Lord. Not just the big things, not just the holy things, not just the things people applaud you for. Whatever you do. So don't leave God outside when you walk into your workplace. Don't leave him behind when you step into your classroom. Don't shut him out when you're raising your children. Don't keep him at the church while you go home to face battles alone. Bring him with you. Invite him into it. And you will find that when God is involved in every detail, your whole day begins to move in rhythm with his will. One of the greatest struggles we face as human beings is learning how to release control. We like to plan, we like to organize, we like to predict. We think if we can just arrange every detail, everything will fall into place. But how many of you know life doesn't work that way? No matter how carefully you plan, there will always be interruptions, delays, and detours that you didn't see coming. And that's where trust comes in, because when you let God take over your day, you're not just inviting him into your tasks, you are trusting his timing and his plans, even when they don't align with your own. There is something about God's timing that confuses us. We live in a microwave generation where everything is instant. Instant food, instant answers, instant gratification. And if we're not careful, we start treating God like he's supposed to operate on our schedule. But God doesn't move according to your clock. He moves according to his purpose. His ways are higher than your ways. His thoughts are greater than your thoughts. And sometimes the very delay that frustrates you is the delay that saves you. Sometimes the thing you thought you needed right now would have destroyed you if God had given it to you too soon. When you trust his timing, you understand that waiting is not wasting. Waiting is working something out in you. While you are waiting on the blessing, God is working on your character. While you are waiting on the opportunity, God is strengthening your faith. While you are waiting on the open door, God is teaching you to walk with him so that when the door finally swings wide, you are ready to handle what's on the other side. We all have stories of moments when we thought God was late. We cried, we prayed, we worried, we begged, and still the answer didn't come when we wanted it. But later, when we looked back, we saw that he was right on time. Because if he had shown up when we demanded, we would have settled for less than his best. If he had answered when we thought we needed it, we would have missed the fullness of what he was preparing. That's why trust is so essential, because your perspective is limited, but his is eternal. And it's not just about timing, it's about trusting his plan. You may have your goals, your vision board, your 5-year strategy. You may think you know the road you're supposed to take, but sometimes God interrupts your plan to redirect your destiny. Sometimes what looks like rejection is actually protection. Sometimes what feels like a setback is really a setup. Sometimes the thing you thought was falling apart is really God putting it back together in a better way. You see, we think we know what's best for us, but only God sees the end from the beginning. You're looking at a single puzzle piece while he sees the whole picture. You're walking step by step while he's already mapped out the path. And when you surrender to his plan, you stop panicking when things don't go your way, because you realize it was never supposed to be your way. It was always supposed to be his way. That's why we must stop comparing our journey to someone else's. Just because they got there quicker doesn't mean you're behind. Just because their breakthrough happened faster doesn't mean yours isn't coming. God knows exactly what you need when you need it and how you need it. And when you trust him, you can live with peace in the process, because peace doesn't come from knowing the plan. Peace comes from knowing the planner. And let me tell you something, trust is tested in the waiting room. Anybody can praise God when everything is falling into place. Anybody can trust God when the doors are swinging wide. But the true test of faith is when you're stuck in the end between when the prayer hasn't been answered, when the promise hasn't yet manifested, when you don't know how it's going to work out. Can you still trust him then? Can you still believe that he's working when you can't see the evidence? Can you still hold on to his word when everything around you is shaking? That is the kind of trust that pleases God. And when you begin to walk in that trust, something happens inside you. You no longer feel the pressure to manipulate outcomes. You don't waste your strength trying to force things into existence. You don't lose your joy because something didn't go your way. Instead, you rest in the assurance that if God said it, he will do it. If God promised it, he will bring it to pass. And if he is delaying it, it's only because he has something greater in store. So every morning when you wake up and hand your day over to him, remind yourself, I don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have to know the when, the how, or the why. All I have to do is trust. Trust his timing, trust his wisdom, trust his plan, because the God who holds your day also holds your future, and he will never fail. When you truly allow God to take over your day, something begins to shift deep inside you. It's not just about what happens on the outside, it's about the atmosphere of your heart, because too many of us are walking through life carrying pressure that God never intended for us to carry. We wake up already stressed, already tense, already rehearsing problems before we even step out of the bed. And then we wonder why we are exhausted by noon. We are weighed down not just by responsibilities, but by the invisible pressure of trying to control what we cannot control. But when you let God take over your day, He exchanges your pressure for His peace. There is a difference between walking in peace and living under pressure. Pressure drains you, peace sustains you. Pressure makes you reactive, peace makes you steady. Pressure causes you to panic, peace gives you clarity. That's why the enemy wants you tied up in stress, always anxious, always fearful, because if he can keep your mind in turmoil, he can rob you of the strength to walk in your purpose. But when you surrender your day to God, you are saying, Lord, I refuse to let anxiety govern me. I refuse to let fear dictate my steps. I refuse to let stress become my master. I choose peace. And let me tell you, peace is not the absence of problems. If you're waiting for life to calm down before you walk in peace, you'll never experience it, because there will always be something happening, a bill due, a conflict at work, a child acting out, a doctor's report you weren't expecting. Peace doesn't come because everything is perfect. Peace comes because you know who holds your day. Peace comes when you recognize that no matter what storms may rise, you are anchored in the one who never changes. Think about how many times Jesus demonstrated this. One moment he's asleep on a boat while a storm is raging and his disciples are panicking. Why could he sleep? Because he knew the storm was no match for the presence of God. That's the same peace he offers you, not the kind that denies the storm, but the kind that lets you rest in the middle of it. The peace that says, I may not know how this will work out, but I know the one who is working it out. When you walk in peace, you stop letting every little thing steal your joy. You stop reacting to every distraction, every negative comment, every unexpected delay. You stop letting people pull you into arguments that don't align with your purpose. You begin to realize, I don't have to respond to everything. I don't have to fight every battle. I don't have to carry every weight, because some things are better left in God's hands. And when you leave it with Him, you can breathe, you can rest, you can walk in peace instead of pressure. But here's the truth, peace is a choice. You can choose to carry stress, or you can choose to cast your cares on Him. You can choose to live in fear, or you can choose to walk by faith. You can choose to keep control, or you can choose to surrender. The reason some of us never find peace is because we refuse to release. We keep replaying the conversation, rehashing the problem, reliving the hurt, trying to fix what only God can fix. But peace will not come until you let go. And sometimes that means letting go of the outcome you envisioned. Sometimes that means trusting God with a door that hasn't opened yet. Sometimes that means forgiving someone who will never apologize. Sometimes that means releasing a burden you don't have the strength to carry. But every time you choose peace over pressure, you are declaring, Lord, I trust you more than I trust myself. When you walk in peace, people will notice. They'll wonder why you're not falling apart under the weight of your responsibilities. They'll wonder why you're calm when others are panicking. They'll wonder why you still smile when everything around you is chaotic. And that's when you get to testify, not about your strength, but about God's presence. Because it's not your peace, it's His peace. It's not your calm, it's His Spirit sustaining you. And the beautiful thing about peace is that it becomes contagious. When you carry peace into your home, your children feel it. When you carry peace into your marriage, your spouse feels it. When you carry peace into your workplace, your coworkers feel it. Peace spreads because the presence of God is not silent, it flows. And the more you walk in peace, the more you create an atmosphere where God can move. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, ask yourself, will I carry the weight of this day on my shoulders, or will I let God carry it for me? Will I live under the pressure of trying to do it all alone, or will I walk in the peace of knowing that I am never alone? The choice is yours. And when you choose peace, you choose to let God take over your day. When you allow God to take over your day, it's not just about what he does in you, it's also about what he does through you. Because when his presence fills your heart, it cannot stay hidden. It begins to show up in the way you speak, the way you act, the way you treat people. You become a reflection of his love in the ordinary moments of your life. Too many of us think shining God's light means doing something grand and visible to the world, but often it's the small, quiet actions that carry the most power. It's the kindness you show to someone who feels invisible. It's the patience you extend when you could have chosen frustration. It's the encouragement you offer to someone who is barely holding on. You never know how much impact you carry when you allow God to shine through you. Sometimes people are not listening to sermons. They are watching your life. They are watching how you handle stress, how you treat your family, how you respond when things don't go your way. And the way you carry yourself becomes the sermon they never asked to hear but desperately needed to see. That's why it's so important to let God govern your words and actions throughout the day. Because every conversation becomes an opportunity to reflect his character. Every encounter becomes an opportunity to demonstrate his love. We live in a world that is heavy with darkness. People are weighed down by fear, confusion, anger, and division. And in the middle of that darkness, you are called to shine, not shine with your own light, but shine with the light of Christ living inside of you. A lamp doesn't argue with darkness. It just shines. It doesn't strain, it doesn't fight. It just does what it was created to do. That's what happens when you invite God into your day. He ignites something in you that naturally radiates to those around you. You may think what you do doesn't matter, but you'd be surprised how God uses even the smallest gestures. A smile to a stranger, a word of encouragement to a co-worker, a prayer whispered for someone who didn't even know you were interceding for them. These things may seem small to you, but in God's hands, they can shift the trajectory of someone's day, even their life, because sometimes people don't need a miracle in the form of fire from heaven. Sometimes they just need to feel seen, valued, and loved. And when you let God use you, you become that miracle. But here's the challenge. You can't shine light if your own spirit is cluttered with bitterness, anger, and unforgiveness. That's why surrendering your day to God matters so much, because when you start your day in his presence, he clears out the clutter. He heals the wounds that would otherwise spill over into how you treat others. He fills you with his love so that what overflows from you is not your frustration, but his grace. People who shine are not people who have perfect lives. They are people who know how to stay connected to the source of their light. And let me remind you, shining your light doesn't mean being loud or drawing attention to yourself. It means living in such a way that people can sense God's love through you without you having to announce it. It means carrying yourself with integrity when no one is watching. It means choosing kindness when it would be easier to be cold. It means speaking truth with compassion instead of judgment. It means forgiving when everyone else says you should hold a grudge. These are the ways you shine. Some of you don't realize that you are the answer to someone else's prayer. Somebody prayed, Lord, send me encouragement, and you walked into their life. Somebody asked, Lord, show me you still care, and your simple act of kindness became the evidence. That's why you cannot afford to go through your day closed off and self-absorbed. You are carrying something the world needs. And when you let God take over your day, he will strategically position you in places where your light is most needed. Even in difficult environments, you can shine. You may work in a toxic workplace, but your peace can become a contrast that awakens others. You may live in a household where not everyone believes, but your patience and love can become a testimony that softens hearts. You may walk into a store and encounter a stranger whose heart is heavy, and just by the way you treat them, they begin to feel hope again. That's the power of letting God shine through you. So don't underestimate the influence of your light. Don't convince yourself your actions don't matter. Don't assume that people aren't watching. Every day is an opportunity to represent the God you serve, not by preaching at people, but by living in such a way that they feel his love through you. And when your day is surrendered to him, you won't have to force it. You'll simply radiate his presence everywhere you go. At the end of the day, after the hustle, after the noise, after the ups and the downs, you have to pause long enough to reflect. Because if you truly let God take over then you cannot close your eyes without acknowledging his hand in it. Too often, we rush through life without ever stopping to recognize the moments where he showed up. We let one day bleed into the next, carrying stress forward, carrying burdens forward, carrying yesterday's troubles in tomorrow's opportunities. But there is something powerful about ending your day in reflection and gratitude. When you take time to look back, you begin to see the fingerprints of God in places you didn't notice before. Maybe it was in that conversation where you felt peace instead of anger. Maybe it was in that moment when you were overwhelmed, but somehow you found strength you didn't think you had. Maybe it was in the fact that you woke up this morning, went through the day, and still have breath in your body right now. Don't take that for granted. Gratitude shifts your perspective. It reminds you that even though the day may not have been perfect, God was present. And if he was present, then you were never alone. Reflection also allows you to release. You cannot keep carrying every single thing from the day into your tomorrow. That's how people end up weary, bitter, and broken. You've got to learn how to lay it down at night. Lay down the disappointments, lay down the mistakes. Lay down the arguments, lay down the things you cannot change, because the truth is, no matter how hard you think about it, you cannot go back and rewrite the day. What's done is done, but you can place it in God's hands and trust him to redeem it. And when you release it, you make room for peace to settle over you. Sometimes reflection means acknowledging where you fell short. Maybe you didn't respond the way you should have. Maybe you lost your patience. Maybe you let fear guide you instead of faith. That's all right. God's grace is sufficient. Reflection is not about condemnation. It's about correction. It's about saying, Lord, I see where I stumbled today, but I thank you for another chance tomorrow. That's the beauty of grace. Every sunset is God's reminder that the day is done, and every sunrise is his invitation to start again. Ending the day with gratitude does more than bring peace to your mind. It strengthens your faith, because when you rehearse what God has done, you remind yourself of his faithfulness. Gratitude keeps you from focusing only on what didn't happen and opens your eyes to what did. You may not have got everything you wanted, but you had everything you needed to make it through. You may not have solved every problem, but God carried you through it. Gratitude turns your bed into an altar where you worship him, not with a choir, not with instruments, but with the whisper of a thankful heart. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes ending your day with gratitude is as simple as saying, Lord, thank you for keeping me. Thank you for protecting me on the road. Thank you for providing food on the table. Thank you for the people in my life. Thank you for strength I didn't know I had. Thank you for grace that covered me when I didn't deserve it. It may seem small, but those simple words open the door for peace to flood your spirit, because a grateful heart cannot be a restless heart at the same time. And here's the beautiful thing. When you end your day in reflection and gratitude, you position yourself to start the next day differently. Because the way you close one chapter determines how you open the next. If you close the day with bitterness, you wake up heavy. If you close the day with gratitude, you wake up with hope. That's why it's so important not to let the sun go down on your anger, not to let the weight of today rob you of the joy of tomorrow. Close it in gratitude, seal it in prayer. Rest in peace knowing God has tomorrow already in his hands. So tonight when you lay your head on the pillow, don't just fall asleep exhausted and drained. Take a moment, breathe, reflect, thank him, release the day into his hands. Because no matter what happened, whether it was beautiful, whether it was painful, whether it was ordinary, God was in it. And if he was in it, then you can rest knowing he will also be in your tomorrow.